What's going on, everybody? Welcome in Wager Alarm live stream. It's Tuesday night. Howard Bender, Craig Mish. Let's wrap up week 6. Move ahead to week 7. Craig, we got back on the straight and narrow this week. We finished above 500, 4-3 in the Nugget, 3-2 in the Super Contest. Obviously, we'd prefer a 5-0 and a 7-0, but listen, you know what? It was about rebounding from the week before, which we did. On, everybody, welcome in Wager Alarm live stream.
Yeah, we did. Great bounce back, I thought, last week, both in college and in pro. Certainly, a couple of the picks were close. We could have had better results, I think, especially in the Super Contest. I was disappointed personally with my views on a couple of the picks there, too. But overall, I think that it shows you that one week has really nothing to do with the next. It really is amazing that somebody is 27-3 in the Super Contest. It's the best record ever in the history of the contest right now through 6 weeks, which is phenomenal. And listen, we're trying to make our way back into trying to finish in the money, and certainly we'll get back at it this week. And before we get into this week, we can kind of take a look back, Howard, at last week's picks. And simply put, I'll start off, and then we could just kind of go from there. The one team in college right now that you have to, I think, both against the spread and even in maybe some parlays or things like that, it just looks like Rutgers is completely quit. I know that they have a new coach and their quarterback transferred, their running back transferred, but they got shut down by an Indiana team that isn't really very good, and they got shut out 35-0. So I think it's safe to say at this point, even though I don't love laying big points, my guess is that if you faded Rutgers in the final 5 games, you may go 5-0 against the spread. I mean, they are there. There was a story online about how there's some people that feel that they're the worst Division I college football team of all time right now. So the line is moving up. By the time we get to tomorrow's lines, it probably will go a little bit higher. Minnesota plays Rutgers this week, but we have to keep a close eye on that because that's you hate to say anything is giving money away, but Minnesota's a pretty good team. Minnesota's a lot better than Indiana, and the spread is about the same from last week. So Rutgers just doesn't look like they can score at all offensively. Nothing, zero. No quarterback, no running back, new coach. It's kind of like a tanking season when you're not supposed to be tanking in college, but it appears that way. That was our first pick. That was a win.
All right, so let me ask you here. That was a great win for us with Indiana. At what point, if it's 28 right now, the Super Contest and the Westgate and the Nugget, they close out their lines tomorrow for us.
Right. Yeah.
How high are you willing to go on the spread before you say I just can't take this many? I can't lay this many points.
28's probably the number. It feels right. A road team, 4 touchdowns. I think it's 28.5 right now. So we'll have to see if there's some pullback tomorrow. There was pullback in last week's game from Tuesday to Wednesday too, because there are some people who just they're anti-trend. There are some bettors who feel like it can't happen again. Like you hear it, like, oh, how many times can this keep happening? Eventually, they're going to do well. Believe it or not, there are some people like that. They'll just keep taking Rutgers until it happens. But there are some really smart people out there that are fading this team. So we'll see what it comes out tomorrow. But I feel pretty confident at this point, just going against them in every game the rest of the year.
Nice. All right. Where do you want to go? You want to keep talking? You want to wrap up what we did?
Yeah,
this
let's finish
past
the
week?
college game. Sure.
All right. So Arizona, we lost on that one there. Washington actually came in.
Yeah, Washington showed up in a
hit.
big way. Yeah, Washington showed up in a big way. That was completely the wrong view on that one. They blew out Arizona. It wasn't very close. And so now Washington has a very big tilt this week against Oregon. I don't think any team from the Pac-12, Howard, is going to get into the playoff. It certainly doesn't seem that way. But there is a chance for a team to get into a Rose Bowl game, and that's a very big deal for the Pac-12. And whoever wins this game, in all likelihood, is the favorite to play in the Rose Bowl. And so while we look at a lot of times as the Final Four and the college football playoff as being the be-all, end-all for these schools and for these kids and for these coaches, there's a lot of bonuses involved there for getting to the Rose Bowl. And Washington did respond in a big way. Remember, they have 2 losses already, so they can't afford a third, and Oregon's more or less in that same situation. Their quarterback, Justin Herbert, hasn't been as good as I thought he would be this year, but he's been good enough. I still think he'll be a first-round pick in the NFL, but clearly this is the big game, I think, in that conference this week.
Well, if you need somebody to blame for that one, I took Justin Herbert actually as one of my quarterbacks. Him and Trevor Lawrence in the best.
Trevor Lawrence has not been good either, shockingly.
There you go. Yeah. So that's my quarterback pairing. 2 potential Heisman candidates. Guess what? Bye-bye. nevertheless. Texas Tech, we took them plus 11 over Baylor. That was actually that worked out nicely for us. Texas Tech stayed in the game. It all went to overtime.
It did. So a bunch of overtimes, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, double overtime. So I had suggested that it was possible that I thought Texas Tech could win this one outright. So to see it only fall into a 3-point game when we were getting 11, I love it.
It was a great one and a bad one for people who bet the under in that game. It was 6-3, I believe, at the half. But that's the danger of college football and betting unders, is that they'll keep playing in those overtimes sometimes until that thing goes over. So if you're going to bet a team that in an over-under game where the spread is 3 or 6 or 7 or 4, you always have to keep that in mind. There's a chance for that happening. But yeah, that was definitely the right side for sure in that game.
And then the other game, Fresno State, we had them plus 3.5 against Air Force. Looked like we were doing well.
Looked
Fresno
good early.
State took the lead early. They held the lead. I think it was either Fresno State had the lead or it was tied at the half. It was close there. And then all of a sudden, Air Force just completely blew up.
Yeah.
Fresno State's defense just got crazy tired in the second half, and they couldn't do it. And Air Force just ran the ball all over them, and then ended up with a pick 6 at the end of the game there, just to put the icing on the cake.
Yeah, it wasn't the wrong side. I mean, that's all there is to it. Out of the 4 games, we had 2 wins, and probably 3 of the 4 were relatively close. That one, look, sometimes you're just gonna. You go back and look and you say, well, maybe the situation was, again, they got tired against a team that all they do is run. But how are you really supposed to know in those scenarios? And it played out that way. And there is a scenario I want to talk about, by the way, with the NFL from Monday night that we'll get to. I know we didn't have an opinion on that as we run through our NFL picks. And I'll start off. My favorite pick of the week last week was the Rams. I was stunned to see what San Francisco did to them. I give them all the credit in the world at this point. We'll see what happens with the Rams if they bounce back this week, and I think that they probably will. But if they do, it just will show you how good the 49ers appear to be. I don't think anybody predicted this team to win 13 or 14 games this year, and they don't have to do a lot at this point to get there, Howard. Like they could be like a little bit above 500 and still get there the rest of the way. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about the play calling. I thought, for having Jared Goff and all those receivers, and is it that different from what they did last year offensively, that on the goal line, on 3rd and 1, you run, on 4th and 1, you run?
Tell you what it is. You ready? I'll tell you exactly what it is. And I said this the other day. When they turn the helmets off and McVay can't sit there and do it, Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, disguised his coverage, and then with 15 seconds left, he started moving guys around, and all of a sudden, Jared Goff started to struggle with reading defenses, and he couldn't get the communication that he needed in order to see what happened. And I mean, listen, because Rams came out like a house of fire.
But respectfully, Howard, they have the ball on the goal line on 3rd and 1. They run Malcolm Brown. He doesn't get in. They run the same exact play on 4th down. Yep. That's not about the time in your ear. That's just about 2 bad play calls back to back.
No, that's definitely not. And listen, they ran into a big problem when Safford left for free agency, and they put this guy Notaboom in as his
he's out for the year
backup. Notaboom is now out for the year. His backup is even more atrocious. They just made a trade with Cleveland. Rams actually, here you go. They trade Marcus Peters. They trade like 5 draft picks for Jalen Ramsey now. Wow. So he comes into their secondary, and then they trade for an offensive lineman named Corbett from Cleveland, and he's going to probably fill in for them over there.
I mean, listen, their defense played well enough to beat San Francisco. They kept giving them the ball. And then there was another play where they ran Malcolm Brown on 4th and 1 on like the 20-yard line of the 49ers. And look, I think Todd Gurley's at the end. I don't think, and look, let me give all due respect to Todd Gurley, who's had a phenomenal NFL career. He was a number 1 running back in fantasy for years. I think his career is coming to an end, and it's coming fast. And I think this kid Henderson showed a lot. There's a chance that he ends up being either the primary or split guy back. But the one thing that I'll give to Gurley that these other guys don't do is that Gurley needing a yard is getting you a yard. He scored 4 touchdowns the last 2 weeks before he got hurt. And maybe they just figured they could put the same personnel in there and get it done. But Malcolm Brown is not the same guy that Gurley is near the goal line.
They did it last year with C.J. Anderson.
Did it last year that's true. They did it last year with C.J. Anderson also. So a very tough one to figure out for me. It was an epic spot for the Rams at home, 10 days off, 49ers coming off a Monday night game. And that game, not only was the Rams the wrong side, it wasn't even close. A terrible pick, and one that just left me completely scratching my head. in addition to one of the other picks too. But we'll get to that in the Super Contest.
We'll get to that.
So the Rams was one in the Golden Nugget. The Steelers was one in the Golden Nugget.
Steelers was one. We had
that was one that right off the top that I agreed with you. I would have went with that as well. That was a great pick, and I didn't think they'd win the game outright. But how do the Chargers? How are they laying points to anybody? I mean, it makes no sense. So that was a good one. And the third one was
Saints. We had them +1 in the Nugget, +1.5.
Saints also just ride the Saints until they lose. You have to do that in the NFL. When teams are high, you don't go against them. Makes no sense. Oh, what am I talking about? I went against the 49ers. So, but either way, 4-3 in that. And then in the Super Contest, we had the same three picks that we're discussing. The fourth pick is one that I'm also responsible for, which is the worst pick of the season for us. The Tennessee Titans against the Denver Broncos. I couldn't find anybody taking Tennessee all week long. I mean, I don't know what to say, honestly, about that one. It's almost to the point where if Tennessee comes out and plays well this week, I'm going to cry. Like I am going to be upset because that was the single worst offensive performance I've seen from an NFL team in a very long time.
But see, you know what though? I was dying because you said it on the live stream last. You said, here's what's going to happen. Denver's going to come down. They're going to score a field goal. They're going to kick a field goal. It's going to be 3-0. Then Tennessee's going to give the ball back, and then Denver's going to come back. They're going to kick a field goal. It's going to be 6-0. Then Tennessee's going to come down the field. They're going to kick a field goal. It's going to be 6-3. And you said, and you had that whole thing, and it was absolutely perfect right up until Denver
it was 13-0, and they were still in the game. But their offensive line is just so bad, Tennessee. and the other thing too, to me, how does Derrick Henry ever rush for 200 yards in a game? If you never watched the NFL before and you watch that game, you would think Derrick Henry's the worst running back in the NFL. I don't know how does this guy ever get 100 in an NFL game? As soon as the Broncos hit him, this guy falls like a pancake. And then they're running straight after Marcus Mariota, and Derrick Henry's just watching the guy go right by him and just sack him. Like, I mean, it was so sad for me to have to watch that, and I had to endure it. But you know what? When I make a bad pick, I like to eat it and watch it. And I watched that game right through. And you know what, man? It would not shock me to see Tennessee bounce back, but I can't take them anymore. I don't know what was going on in that game. I don't know how that team scores points.
You don't have to because it's the Chargers at Tennessee, and it's Tennessee -2.
And Tennessee will probably win, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not that stupid to do it 2 weeks in a row. I'm not going to do it. But that was easily the most depressing pick of the year. But it happens every year. Listen, we're here at week 6. That was the worst pick of the year. If it takes 6 weeks, if in the next 6 weeks we get one more bad one like that, I'll be okay with it too. But to be clear, there are picks where you're on the right side. There are picks where you're on the wrong side. That pick was not the wrong side. That was the wrong planet.
All right. Well, then our last one for the Super Contest, we took Cincinnati. We took the points. They were getting 11 points.
Another great pick.
Oh, thank you.
You should.
I'm responsible for that.
Why don't you do this live stream and I will just step out because I mean the way that I've seen the NFL the last 2 weeks has not been accurate to say the least. But look, the Cincinnati pick was actually not a great pick. The Ravens could have covered that one. We feel good about the pick. Cincinnati was in it covering from start to finish, but Baltimore did have some opportunities to take advantage of that one, and I was watching that, rooting heavily against Baltimore and praying, and they just kept kicking field goals. We got really lucky with that toward the end of the game.
A little backdoor cover there with that touchdown. It was beautiful.
The Bengals are the backdoor cover kings of 2019. Them against the Buffalo Bills. So we went 3-2 there. But a great example of the NFL, and I wanted to bring this up before we start talking about some of the games this week, was the Monday night game, was the epic discussion about gambling in the NFL. You could watch from the very beginning of that game between Detroit and Green Bay. Now, look, I know that there were a lot of penalties there that definitely were an issue, without question. And there are also some people that would respond to me watching this live stream saying, Craig, what are you talking about? Detroit was the right pick. They really dominated from start to finish. I get all that. But let's play what the result was. You got to 3 minutes left in that NFL game feeling you were not sure about if Green Bay was the right pick or Detroit. With 3 minutes to go, you had no idea. You had no idea if you liked the under or the over. You still had no idea. It was sitting right on the total, and Green Bay has the ball with a chance to score a touchdown. If Green Bay scores a touchdown, the Packers cover, and the game goes over. If the Packers kick a field goal, the Lions cover, and the game goes under. And that right there was the perfect lesson in sports wagering to show you just how good they are at making these lines, because that's why this is so tough to beat, because one fumble, one play, one non-call would have completely changed the betting outcome of that game. And unfortunately, and as crazy as it sounds, that's kind of where you want to be when you're betting on sports. You want to be right down there at the end of the game, and you need a little luck on your side in order to cash in a lot of situations. And that was a perfect example of that last night.
Yeah, it was. And I hedged. I had Green Bay in a survivor pool, and I had Detroit with the points.
That's not a hedge. You won both of those.
What's that?
Won both if you did.
Well, yeah. Well, because I also had the over.
Right. So if Green Bay would have scored, then
Green Bay would have scored.
Then you would have had the over. You would have had Green Bay, but you would have lost Detroit.
There you go.
And it was all down to the end, like the very end of the game. People say, oh, a lot of games come down to it, but that one really had all possibilities.
Oh, it had a ton of possibilities. And listen, and the funny thing is that everybody from Detroit is whining and crying about the refs and what went down at the end of the game. And the bottom line is, and I said this today, I said, if 2 of those 5 field goals are touchdowns, then there's no contest.
Nope.
There's no contest at all. But meanwhile, that was Detroit. So there you go. All right, so 4-3 in the Nugget, 3-2 in the Super Contest. Yeah, of course we'll take it. So let's talk about some of the lines that we're looking at right now.
Well, first of all, Thursday. Well, let's just get this out of the way real quick.
Really? No, it's Denver, dude. It's Denver. Why do you want to do this?
AC Denver. Kansas City did not stop Houston on any possession last week, except for when Hopkins threw an interception in the end zone. They scored on every other possession they had. I don't know what's up with the Chiefs defense. The total is 48.5 in the game, and the Chiefs are minus 3.5. I mean, how can Denver even keep up? You would think with Kansas City, but if Carlos Hyde is going to do that against the Chiefs, then who's to say that Lindsey and Freeman won't do that against the Chiefs? So, I mean, my lean would be toward the under in this game. I just think a lot of running and keeping Mahomes off the field, if they can do that. And by the way, if Kansas City goes up, put it this way, I think the game could be close. But in a scenario, a bad scenario for Denver is what? 21-3 after 3 quarters? And then what? Flacco throwing like nuts? That's not going to work. I mean, Denver cannot come back in any game that they're down. So we'll see there. We also have UCLA Stanford on Thursday night, kind of a dog game there. Not really all that interested. So in terms of college, this weekend, not quite like last week. We had some fun games last week. Unfortunately, my Gators did not win at LSU. But the 2 really main college games that are going on, as I mentioned, Oregon against Washington. The Ducks are minus 3 on the road. It's a 3:30 Eastern game. And so the winner of this will put themselves in a much better position in the pack. And also Arizona plays against Utah. Utah's a huge favorite, minus 13.5. They're one of the best defensive teams in the country. We've illustrated that going back to all the way when they played against BYU. And then the big game, the elimination game in the Big Ten is Michigan and Penn State. Penn State's minus 8.5. Michigan has obviously struggled for the most part this year, but a win for Michigan over Penn State probably puts them back in the top 10. And you obviously know that they'll play Ohio State at some point this year. So if you're dreaming and wishing and you're a Michigan fan, then that's the outcome that you're praying for. Is that likely to happen? No. A Penn State win and then a win for them against Ohio State would put them into the playoff picture. So those are the main games in college this week in terms of the top 25. Alabama plays Tennessee, another cupcake this week for them.
All right, a couple of NFL games that I'm looking at right now. First of all, Miami at Buffalo. Listen, I know Buffalo's coming off the bye week. I just don't think that Buffalo is the type of team that should be getting a 2-touchdown.
17 points right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Like, listen, I don't like Miami. They brought in Fitzpatrick, and that made them a little competitive against Washington. I just don't know if Buffalo is one of those. I mean, well, we're gonna have to wait and see what the line is and see if it comes down at all. I
think this will be what we'll see tomorrow.
17.
Yeah, that feels right.
Well, then I believe it or not, I think I'm tilting Miami.
Toward Miami. Yikes!
I know, right? It's disgusting.
They haven't covered a game all year.
Not one. Not one. Oh no, they covered against Washington. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's right. I
Yeah.
apologize. Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they covered against the Redskins.
So here you go. 2 in a row. Let the trend be your friend.
Yeah, sure.
Minnesota visiting Detroit. Minnesota is a 1-point favorite, which
Now,
to me
now,
looks
now a pick 'em.
okay. So perfect for me. I know
What do
you
like
don't.
This one?
I know you don't like reading Minnesota. I'm all in on Minnesota right now.
Really? You like
I'm
the Vikings?
all in on Minnesota. I think what we just
I'm
saw.
wrong every time on them. Every time.
What's that?
I'm wrong every time with the Vikings.
Well, here you go.
Have the faith.
Who's your buddy? Who's your pal?
You tell me.
I'm telling you. I think what we saw for the first 3 weeks of the season, I think that's exactly what they wanted to do. They're treating the season like they just treated a like you treat an individual game. You go run heavy, run heavy, run heavy. Then your receivers start getting a little squeaky squawky. You start dealing out to them because you've already established the run. Everybody's got to play to Dalvin Cook. Everybody knows that they have to play to Dalvin Cook, which opens up the passing game right now. I think they cruise through. I love this matchup here for Minnesota. Okay. I do.
Yes. By the way, 60% of underdogs are covering this season, so that really fits in with a lot of what we do, and it just shows you that the 1 week that we went against that and we took those favorites, we fell flat. So it's probably the best thing to do is just stick with that. In terms of other big games this week, Philly at Dallas. Dallas somehow a 3-point favorite in this game based on the way that they've played the last few weeks. I'm not sure about that. Doug Peterson, of course, guaranteed a win at Dallas on Sunday night. That's one of the marquee games. Another big one is Houston at Indianapolis. That Houston could be, for me, that was one of the ones in the total. Most of the totals that we did on this live stream, I think almost every one are going to hit. I'm on great pace with those, but I am not with Houston. Houston seems to be the one team that maybe I had the wrong read on. They're 4-2, so there's still time for them to go under 8.5, but that doesn't look really good right now. And they're on the road at Indianapolis, a place last year where the Colts had that game won and literally went for it 4th and 1 on their own 40. Houston kicked a field goal and won. I remember that game last year. So another interesting game there. Saints and Bears this week. Saints, of course, winning and covering in every game that they're in. Not really sure, in particular, Howard, what you're going to get from the Bears on a week-to-week basis, although they're coming off a bye, so you would assume that they'll look better. But the Saints defense is keeping them in every game this year.
Saints defense, definitely. They've gone 32 straight games without allowing a 100-yard rusher right now.
Wow. I didn't realize that. That's a lot.
Ba-boom. Listen, a couple of road dogs I like. I like Oakland and Green Bay. I like Washington. Actually, Washington's a home dog, but Oakland's in Green Bay. Washington's at home against San Francisco. I know, San Francisco, they look great. They look phenomenal. 10 points? I don't know. 10 points seems a lot to me.
It would be taking Washington or nothing for me as well. There's no laying big points on the road ever. It doesn't work. But Raiders is interesting there. The Raiders is definitely interesting because, I mean, even with the Packers winning all these games, they just don't look great. Like in any game that they've played, they really don't.
Rodgers doesn't have the timing with the receivers. Receivers are still banged up. Who knows if Devontae Adams is back?
Oh, this Valdez-Scantling was a huge bust for me, man.
He's a mess. Yeah. Allison got hurt. I mean, when you're talking about a guy named Alan Lazard, an undrafted free agent out of Iowa State, and that's your most reliable receiver in Green Bay, you know what? I'll take the power rushing of Josh Jacobs in Oakland and have them air it out a little bit when they need to.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a good spot for Oakland for sure, coming off a bye, no doubt. You mentioned the Rams earlier getting Jalen Ramsey. They are -3 at Atlanta. I suppose that if you wanted to just continue to play the streak, you would go against the Rams, but the Falcons can't cover anything. They can't stop anything.
I'm telling you right now, I have zero interest in this game for gambling purposes this week.
All right. Then the big game that, of course, will be all over is Tennessee -1.5 against the Chargers.
Boom.
Try and predict that one. Games are tough this week, man. Games are really tough. There's a lot of close lines. I mean, we have a 3, a 3, a pick'em, a 1, a 3, a 1.5. That's 6. 2 3s.5. That's 8. And then a 9th game is a 3. So virtually 80% of the games are 3.5 or less. Monday night.
Why you've got to go with a home dog like the Jets on Monday night against the Patriots, 9.5 points.
Jets win that game outright?
Sure.
You would have to think that eventually New England is going to stumble at some point, right? I
Right?
hate going against
their defense that everybody's all into right now. They do. They have to.
They got to stumble eventually, but
could this be it?
I mean, if let me ask you something. If Darnold wasn't playing in this game and it was still Luke Falk, what would the line be?
The line would easily be 17 to 18 points.
Yeah, it would be on the road too. Yeah, I think Darnold's pretty good. I don't know.
Just it transforms the offense. Like you, all of a sudden, you've got a guy who's confident passing.
It's just that the book has to open up so much for New England. They just, I mean, even in the game against the Giants last Thursday, where they literally played maybe their worst offensive game of the season, they still covered that line. It went down right to the end, but they covered that thing. So
Jets defense is better than the Giants defense, though.
Jets is definitely better. How about Jacksonville -3 at Cincinnati?
Yeah, you know what? I like Jacksonville in this one. I really do. They're going to run the ball with Fournette. Cincinnati can't stop the run one bit. You'll see tons of Fournette. They just lost Drake Kirkpatrick, like their best corner of a crappy secondary.
Yeah, Cincinnati also seems to be the kind of team at this point, Howard, that internally is probably looking at it and again playing into a narrative that we don't know exists. But what's the point now? You know. Like, what's the point of AJ Green? You start off and you want to do all the right things, and they certainly have played hard. In fact, you could make the case that the Bengals, with their record, have played harder than a lot of teams with that same record. They've been in games, but at this stage, I think you are kind of looking at it like Cincinnati has a chance for that #1 overall pick. They play Miami in 3 weeks.
They don't have a chance. Miami's not winning a game.
They play Cincinnati.
Miami's not winning that game. There's no way. There's no way. Like those two teams, they will battle. That'll be like a 6-6 tie. 6-6. And neither team will be happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, Rosen, man. You think Rosen's career's done?
Did it ever start?
So bad.
Did it ever
it's
start?
It's not fair. He never got a chance.
Oh, poor kid.
You feeling better about the Arizona Cardinals, by the way? The way that they've been playing a little bit lately? They're at the Giants this week?
No, I'm not touching this one either. Giants getting back Evan Engram.
We got to have 5 picks before we go to Sunday. You're aware of that.
I am aware of that.
Okay, we're going to have to come up with 5.
Did we cover it? Well, you don't like Houston.
I know, but I have to be willing to change my opinion if things are...
Listen, dude, Minnesota I'm confident in. I like Minnesota, and I like the Oakland game. I might be intrigued by Seattle -3.5 against the Ravens.
Did you like Seattle against Cleveland this week?
I did.
That's right. We didn't bet it. Oh my gosh, I would have lost that one too. You know what? We should end this live stream, man. I mean, in the 2 years we've done this, last week was my worst week. There's no doubt. I mean, if I would have added more games to this, we would have just fallen in the standings. It happens. Sometimes you just don't have a clear read on it. I could be into the Jets Monday night.
Ooh, interesting.
A Monday night 10-point home dog? I mean, it is New England, but still. Anyway, Friday night
Spleen looks perfect
sort it all
for
out.
Sam Darnold. That is right. We will. I will check that out. So join us on Friday night, guys, 9 p.m. Eastern. Craig and I will be giving you our picks for both the Super Contest and the Golden Nugget.
I would like to leave everyone with one thing. Hold on. Let's see the score here before we go on the live stream here. Yes, okay. Bottom of the first, the Washington Nationals lead the St. Louis Cardinals. Matt sells the Washington Nationals 5-0. And so this is going to be a sweep, a 4-game sweep. And this is my $200 ticket for the St. Louis Cardinals to win the World Series, placed in December 12th of 2018. That as soon as we get Friday night, I'm not going to tear it up yet. I'm going to wait for the game to end. But as soon as it is, I don't do pie in the face. I do tearing of the ticket. So we'll do my tearing of the ticket on Friday night. And if anybody wants to pie me on the face, let me know. I'll meet you anywhere in South Florida. I deserve a pie after last week. But
you know what? I'll tell you what. Next week on Friday night you take a pie in the face.
For the Cardinals?
I'll send somebody to you
in South Florida.
Yeah, I know somebody who would be loving.
But based on no, we have to do it. No, I'm not taking a pie in the face for a futures bet.
No. You can take it for. I
have to
Seattle.
Yeah, see, I'm not going to do that. I'm not that stupid. Although Cleveland did play well, they could have won that game.
Oh yeah, they were great.
Anyway,
on that note, I got to run.
Just
You got to run. We got to run. Big thanks to our boy Matt Sells for taking care of us. We'll talk to you guys on Friday night. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.